Today we're going to talk about B-stock guitars. I've got a guitar here that was sold as B-stock and it's got a bit of a story to it. So let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to another infrequent episode of Restring Sunday. It's where I take a guitar, restring it and talk a little bit about it. I've done 15 or so of these and there's a playlist linked somewhere on the screen at the moment. But today we've got a Yamaha Pacifica that was sold as a B-stock guitar, and I thought it would be a great time to talk about what B-stock guitars are, and are they really any good? Are they worth going for? This guitar's official name is the Yamaha Pacifica PAC 311H. The Yamaha Pacifica is kind of what I'd call the player's guitar. It's been around since 1990. That was the first introduction of this guitar, and frankly it's always been really consistent. The Pacificas are really good guitars at any price point. There are expensive ones, but there are also cheaper ones, and this is one of the more budget friendly, but still it's got some solid features, and this one in particular was more budget friendly than most because it's B-stock. So B-stock is across every form of product, not just guitars or anything to do with music. You can get B-stock anything, and all it means is that it's a product with some sort of flaw that wouldn't necessarily be the top level of quality that the company would like to put out. Now when it comes to guitars, the features on a B-stock guitar tend to be something to do with either the wood, the finish, or maybe some damage, or sometimes a mixture of any and all three. This guitar kind of has all three of those boxes ticked off, but it's important to mention that what one company classes as B-stock, another might not. It's a varying scale, and it all depends on what the company itself thinks about what their A-stock level is. Some companies are happy with lower level finishes, and some companies are okay with just a little bit of damage, and some people are not. Some companies like PRS, for example, their rule has always been pretty consistent. They don't put out B-stock guitars or second guitars. They run them through the bandsaw, cut them up, throw them away.
Check the guitar over real thoroughly, make sure it meets spec. If it does not meet spec and we cannot repair it, we'll cut the guitar up. Otherwise, we'll make the necessary repairs and then it'll go off into the base coat spray room.
Let's oil this board. And also it's important to mention that not all companies call B-stock guitars B-stock. Sometimes they're called seconds. Gibson calls guitars seconds, and they mark their seconds guitars with a little stamp on the headstock that says 2. Whereas guitars like this, these aren't marked or anything. This is just, well, I mean, it's kind of obvious that there's something wrong with it, but these wouldn't be marked as B-stock. They just are sold as B-stock. And there's a couple of things that make this guitar B-stock. You've probably already noticed some of them, the sizable cracks in the finish down the guitar. These are big cracks. They're not structural to the guitar, but the finish, it's a crack through the finish. But it's actually not just these cracks that make it B-stock. Now what happened with this guitar is that this body was very clearly B-stock. It's got the cracks down the front of the finish, and there's also some cracking on the back as well. Not as severe as on the front, but the front does have significant cracks. They also had this neck that I think also would have been classed as B stock, but they kind of just bolted these two together to make a full B stock guitar. We'll show you the back of the neck, what I'm talking about. So right here, you kind of got, I don't know what it would be. Is it minerals or is it like a burn in the actual wood? But you've also kind of got this one very strong, very strange grain line, like a stitch of wood. I don't know what it is, but you can clearly see the grain go through it, so it's not like it's two pieces just kind of joined. It's a very strange piece. I actually quite like it. It's kind of where your thumb would go when playing on the back of the neck, but that would probably classify this neck as B stock. So let me tell you the story about this guitar, because this is a really nice story, I think. So you've seen, if you've watched some of the Guitar Shopping in Ireland episodes, you've seen my local music store, Everest Music. And that guitar store is way better, like guitar-wise, than it used to be. It used to be more piano-focused, and there was a small section, maybe about like this wall size, of guitars. And one day, went in, this was, bearing in mind that this guitar came out in 2015, so 9 years ago. And I think this was kind of that same year, so 2015. I went in with my dad, and we saw this guitar hanging on the wall, and it was marked down, for the obvious reasons of it being B stock, for €99. Now, for reference, this guitar, if you were buying it today, I think is $530 something. So a significant discount. And I played it, and I thought it was nice, but I didn't buy it at the time that day. So I wanted to go back and get it. And when I got there, it was gone. Wasn't there. Very disappointed. And I don't know what month it is, but my guess would be kind of like September-ish, October-ish of 2015. And very sad, this guitar wasn't there. I missed out. Should have got it when I saw it. Because even with the damage, and that's kind of what this video is about, even with the damage on it, the physical that you can see, big cracks in the finish, this played really well. So I was a bit disappointed, and I was looking at it online, I remember, and it was more expensive than significantly more expensive than what I could have got it for, and I was kind of kicking myself for it, but is what it is. Oh well, can't get them all. And then Christmas morning that year came around, and this was there. So it turns out that the person who poached this guitar on me was my dad, and he bought it for me. And that's really cool, or at least I think it's really cool. So this is that guitar, and because of that, I do have more of a connection with it, I suppose. It's just one of those nice memories, and it helps that this guitar is actually really good. This is a Yamaha Pacifica 311H, and they had, at the time, I think it was a 611H. I think they still do that as well. That was like the more expensive version. It had Seymour Duncan pickups and had like a flame maple veneer, and I think Graph Tech saddles. But this was like the lower level but still good version, because like, look at the features. We have, which is quite unusual, a humbucker in the bridge and a P90 in the neck, and I like how it sounds. I really do enjoy a P90 in the neck. It sounds good. But spec-wise, for €99, because like some external finish cracks, this is a beast of a guitar. Okay, the nut, that is a Graph Tech Tusk nut. So like that's €15 on itself. Then the string trees, they're also Tusk from Graph Tech. That's another 10. So already what, we're 25 in. The tuners are Grover locking tuners. Now I'm not a huge fan of this particular type of locking tuner, but do you know what? Those tuners are what? like €80 already. So just on the headstock and nut from here is like more than what was paid for the guitar. So already amazing deal. But a guitar came with it, and it's a good playing guitar. It's a maple neck and a rosewood fingerboard. I believe this is actual rosewood. It looks like actual rosewood. The body is alder. It's actually got quite a bit of weight to it, but it's not like super uncomfortable in weight-wise. It's just kind of a, it's not a light guitar, but it's not a really heavy guitar. And the finish is also this vintage white. It's more of a, it's kind of what a white would look like if it had a nitro on it. It's not pure white. When you hold it against something that is white, you do notice a big difference, like significant difference in white versus the vintage white. Now, since this release, I think there's been versions of this with the trem, but this is the hardtail version. But I think this alone kind of speaks to, you can get really good guitars if they're B-stock. This is a very good guitar. It's a very good playing, well playing guitar. It just happens to be damaged visually. The cracks are quite deep. The finish is quite deep. Like, I can get my nail in there into these cracks. But you can tell that it's not structural because it's kind of, they're kind of everywhere on the finish of the guitar. So that really doesn't concern me. What we're going to do is we're going to put on some D'Addario 9-46s, heavier on the low gauge, and we're going to tune it to probably E. Most of the time I tune to D standard, but today we'll tune to E. Player circle code. Now, I should point out though, you know, some brands put B stock as things as little as a dent in the finish, or some rough binding around the body, or maybe just something as simple as what we were talking about with this neck, some unusual wood grain. Other times it's something more severe like this guitar, and as far as I'm aware, this is kind of a rarity. You really don't see something as severe as this body finish. I think this was just kind of a one-off where they had a neck that was B-stock, they had a body that was B-stock. Just get it out. It's cheaper than having to start again, because they wouldn't have been able to do anything with this neck. They had a body to go with it, just bolt it together and get it out. Oh, I should also mention one other thing that maybe potentially would have this viewed as B-stock, although I'm not entirely sure, because it might not be. If we look at the neck pocket, there is a sizable gap. Like, I could get a pick in between the gap between the neck and the neck pocket. That's not ideal, but again, B-stock depends on the company and what they decide is their B-stock and what isn't. Really not a fan of these tuners. You have to hold them really weird to get the string through. Now, in classic restring Sunday fashion, I have kind of finished talking without finishing stringing, but it wasn't my fault. I'm not a huge fan of these tuners, just the way that they're strung. You have to line them up. It's weird. But what I will say is that this guitar is proof that you can get a B-stock guitar and for a good price, and it'll be good. Again, this is probably more of a rarity, it being so well priced, but you can still get a good discount on B-stock guitars that have dings, dents, sometimes issues with binding, and sometimes there's no B-stock guitars at all. The companies just don't make them. But an interesting concept nonetheless. Or at least if you found it interesting, you should probably hit the like button and maybe even consider subscribing. You can check out all the other Restring Sundays. There's a playlist somewhere on the screen right now, and there's also something that you can subscribe to if you press it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye!